Alright, welcome back. Today I have a very exciting game for you. It's between an American professional player, and if you aren't aware of the American professional system, there's an arrangement between the American Go Association and the Korean Professional Baduk Association, where we are basically once a year we're promoting the strongest American player who wins the main tournament at the US Go Congress to be a professional, and an American professional, and not somebody from the West who's gone to Asia and become a professional in their system, but actually an American professional Go player, which is really cool. And basically they get to go over and study with the Korean professionals and play in some of the tournaments over there. And they've also gotten invitations to some of the qualifying preliminary rounds of other national tournaments. So this is the Japanese Sankei tournament, I believe, the preliminary rounds. And this is actually the first game that's publicly available from Andy Liu's professional career. I know he's played games in Korea with the other Insei and professionals, but this may be his first time in an actual tournament, like a major national tournament. And it's just the preliminary rounds, the qualifying rounds, but it's pretty exciting nonetheless. So let's see what happens here. So we have Imai Kazuhiro is black, and Andy Liu is white. We'll get into the game. The first thing that's a little strange is this cross opening from black. Black might just be experimenting. The thinking these days is, with Komi, that it's better to build a big area rather than have lots of small areas. So in the cross opening, we can kind of see we're going to have, like, white's going to have a little territory in the lower right, black's going to have a little territory over here, but there's not going to be a single big area on the board. And the thinking is that if the final score is white has 35 points and black has 40, because they have a lot of small groups and there's not a lot of territory, then the 6.5 point Komi is actually going to carry white over the top, and white will win that game. But if we proportionally increase the points, and we just, double the amount of points that each player has, so that proportionally on the board, the, territorial difference is the same, the score would be 70, 35 times 2, to 80, 40 times 2, and that 6.5 point Komi would no longer win the game for white. So it's just a theory, but that's the reason that in modern Go, you very rarely see this cross opening. And it's playable. It's not bad, but it's just something that, to keep in mind, that's why this is uncommon. And we see here black gets kind of this large-scale formation on the left. White makes the enclosure. White approaches the open corner. Black pincers. You have this... black makes this situation up here, and, it almost seems like maybe this stone should have been low, because this is a really nice... this really balances out white's shape on top. Like, if black comes in now, there's not really a concern about that. It's basically just the, white has a base already, so it's not something that is really going to freak black out. Oh, no. Okay, good. My game review froze up all of a sudden. But black doesn't come into the corner like that. Black just extends out here. And then white takes the big point on the bottom, which is a really, really nice point, because extending in front of this high enclosure is really big. Because this, unlike the low enclosure, this projects even more influence along the edge. So it's kind of, it's almost, black had to kind of stabilize this stone, because once white is secure here, this stone could come under severe attack. But it seems like white is doing a good job of keeping the initiative going here. Black takes the corner, threatens to connect underneath. White says no, don't do that. And, white gets kind of an unfortunate stick of stones here, but, these 4 black stones are not that strong. I mean, they're not weak, but they have no base, obviously, because the initial 2 stones were on the 4th line. The corner's kind of open, white's pretty low, or black is pretty low in the upper right. So white presses. And this is kind of a neat technique to just make shape, because it encourages black to come out, and then white just makes this really organic, flowing, out to the center, really damaging this group over here. So white's basically saying, you're no stronger than I am. Yeah, you're getting a little territory here, but that's to be expected. You played in the corner first. And, black comes out on this side, White makes this exchange to keep, there's actually a pretty functional wedge at the moment, especially if this group gets a little stronger, and White just says, no, now you can't cut my stones. Comes out continuing to pressure, the stones on top, which was the plan. And then when I first saw this result right here, I was a little hesitant because, it seems like this, like these white stones are a little over-concentrated. We're really only looking at like 8 points of territory for these 5 moves, whereas, the marked black stones seem a little bit more efficiently placed. But one thing to note, and this is really important, is that white still has a really devastating invasion at A, and so there is no black territory up here at the moment, and that makes this over-concentratedness okay, because A, white has the stone on the outside, so white's first to the outside, and white also has a follow-up invasion at A, and that makes this a totally playable variation for white. And even after black descends here, there's still the invasion at A. So that's pretty important to realize in this position, that black has it looks like black has territory, but black needs another move to complete it. So black is essentially open at the bottom, and this is no points right now. Now white plays here, and this is a really good move, because you can see like these stones at A through B are kind of creating this like high influence wall, and we can see that if black got the opportunity to come over and play like, here, or possibly one line further back here, either way, like this is gonna be, like this looks like black territory for sure. And then, especially if black comes all the way here, now there's a bunch of moves, like the point at the 3-3 point can be really nasty as a follow-up once there's a stone this close. So just something to look at. But the main thing is, let me get rid of this pop-up. Okay, so white makes this 2-space extension, and then black makes this counter 2-space extension. But one of the things that I think is a little deceptive about this is that white's move, well, alright, they both have follow-ups. Let's not ignore this. Black has a follow-up at A, white has a follow-up at B, pulling this one stone out and cutting these 3 stones off. But of the two, it seems like white's move at B is the more severe follow-up. Yeah, you can pincer this one stone, but if white also plays this 3-space extension, these stones get cut off, and the center looks really, really like favorable for white. And what we can see is white immediately plays that to pull this stone out, which I don't know if black didn't realize how severe this was, or if black thought that there was still a resource at A to keep this hemmed in. But as it turns out, black just has to run away with these 3 stones, which is not the best. Because then white, now comes back and like super solidly sets this up. And, black does the invasion, himself, the counter invasion, so they both got their follow-ups. But it just seems like, these 4 stones are heavy in a way that this one white stone is not. Like, white couldn't give up this one stone. Black can't really just sacrifice all 4 of these and let white, take territory, like, out along, like, this line and take all of this in the center. Like, that would be ridiculous. And white immediately attacks, just saying, hey, what are you going to do with those? And then this is a really cool sequence, and I think possibly as a result of this black knight's move was maybe not the right move. Maybe it would have been better for black to just give way and jump out at 8 to A, and then link up with the stone at B and just be safe in this. Because what happens is black makes this sort of, attacking move, but just doesn't have the strength to back it up. So when white cuts through, what we see here is, black gets this, like, I guess black gets the stones facing the outside, but the group at A is now alive. Before it was something that could be attacked. So, white has gotten a lot of strength out of taking this one stone at B, because now white has 2 eyes, and white doesn't have to worry about this group at all. Before, if we just go back a few moves to here, this whole string at C, is, if black cuts through here or comes out with these stones or something, like this group can still be pressured. But now, just as a result of that knight's move, this happens, and black has to come out to here, this definitely, this group is, the A group overall, including the B stones and the C stones. Like, all of these are definitely stronger now, but basically, it's like, black got stronger in Gote, white became alive, which means that white can now play things like this, because white's not worried about the group at A. So white activates this Aji right away. So what we're seeing is that even though white didn't benefit directly from taking this stone at B, this group did get out and whatnot, but because white got stronger, white can go back and just destroy this territory on top. And that's frequently how it goes, is you won't gain directly from attacking a group, but your group will get stronger, which allows you to go somewhere else on the board and make an invasion. It's using thickness is often about building up strength in one place and then to use in another part of the board. And this is just a great example of that. White comes here, black hanes, and then white still needs a move to, connect these, but decides to throw in this attachment, which is actually pretty wicked. And this goes back to, this move at A, has a lot of really gnarly follow-ups, because once we have these stones over here, this group in the corner is not actually entirely alive anymore. So pulling this stone at B out is actually huge, because it makes the corner not entirely alive. And it cut off these stones in the center of the board, which allowed us to make this other group stronger. So I think white's handling this really well right now. And you can see white starts this ko, which is awesome, because, if white loses this ko, black gets, like, 3 or 4 more points. But if white wins the ko, the black group in the corner dies, and white gets, like, 30 points. So this is a really nice ko for white, because even if black captures at A and makes, like, another, like, 5 points or so, this is much, much heavier on black than it is on white. So white starts moving this stone out as a ko threat, and the thing with this is that it just, if this is a ko threat, then any move around here is a ko threat, which means white would have basically an infinity amount of ko threats. So black just gives way to give white as few forcing moves as possible. White takes the ko, but now you can see black uses this sort of local ko threat, because if white comes back to, if white captures now, black can live by playing this. So, what white needs to do to keep playing the ko is to play this himself, and then black will recapture. But what actually happens is white comes back to connect this, and then black has to, and this is Sankei at this point, because the reason this is such great timing, like this is just such a beautiful sequence for white, is that after we play these moves over here, there's no way for black to connect underneath anymore, and it just works out really well, because now, once we've made these exchanges, this is absolute Sankei. There's nothing black can do in terms of linking up over here, so black has to come and save the group, which lets white just come down here. So white's actually leaving the ko for the moment, like white's saying, okay, black, if you want, you can come back here and live in Gote. But black's, that would be a really slow move for black. Black wants to live by connecting outside and winning the ko. And then the other thing about this move is it's just such a, I would never have thought of this, because, obviously black is immediately, black is immediately going to separate. And it's like, okay, but these two stones here at J3 and G4, like, they are so weak. How can you shoulder hit from the other side? Like, that's crazy. But this is why white is a professional player and I am an amateur. So we get into this, like, really kind of hard-fighting variation with these cuts and, like, this craziness, and white's basically trying to, like, capture these 3 black stones and just say the whole bottom is mine. It's just pretty bold. Black comes back, white comes down to keep, from, having these stones get run to the bottom of the board. And then black connects these stones out, and at this point, when you look at the group, well, I say they're not directly connected, but these stones from A, like these white stones inside this framework, and it's like we have a black stone at B, a black stone at C, and even all the way over at D. Like, there's nowhere this group can go that's not heading towards black stones, and I would just be so freaked out at this point if I were white. I'd be like, how are these four stones around A going to even live? Basically, this is kind of where the game, branches towards, victory or defeat, because especially once this move is played, and there's no chance to maybe, like, play at A and let black play at B and capture them and sacrifice for some attack on the side, like, you have to keep this group alive now. On the flip side, black doesn't actually have to kill this. And I think black makes a big mistake by trying to kill it. Because at this point, actually just before this point, at this point right here, black might be better off just coming back and saying, hey, I'm just going to play at A, I'm going to let you make the tiger's mouth, and then I'm going to play at C, and I'm going to take this whole side as territory. And you'll get out, but, even after another move, I can follow you out, I can make sure, I can kind of poke in over here and get an eye for myself, maybe get an eye over here. I'll be fine, you'll be fine, but I'll take the whole left side as territory. Because I think that would have been better than what happened in the game. So, anyway, white's, and even now, like, this just looks so dire for white. Like, it's hard to see how white is going to work through this, but there's a forcing move down here, and now it's looking like, oh wait, maybe we can get an eye over here real quick, and sure enough, boom, there's your eye. It's only a half eye. White needs another move to make it a real eye, but for the moment, there's no way. Actually, maybe it is a real eye right now, because black can't come here. So this is a real eye, because black can't poke it out right here. So white gets a real eye. Well, now it's not a real eye. But okay, so white got a half eye in Sankei. So white can always come back and connect at A and get an eye here. So if white can get another eye on the edge of the board, come back here and fix this. And what we can see is that black is just hell-bent on killing this. And, when you start getting into this crazy eye-stealing shapes like this, like, you see how far black is having to go to hold this to only one eye? And it's just, like, all this territory that might have been black's on the edge is just annihilated here. Black is still fencing in, because at this point, now that black has, like, run white through all this territory, black really does need to kind of kill this at this point. And that's not a good position to be in. And you can see now, white's just, black had to give up so much to keep white down to one eye, that now white's just going to be able to cut through in some way over here. And so we get this, and then white counterattacks here, which is just really brutal. It's really hard for black to handle this. So here, white makes that eye, and because black comes over here, white could just come back, like connect at A or whatever, and have those two eyes and be 100% okay, but white doesn't even need to do that, because there's enough Aji to counterattack now. So white comes here, and what you can see now is, like, all of these stones have been cut off, which is really scary, right? Like, now it's like, okay, how are we gonna manage this? Well, black just says, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna devastate you down here, an eye for an eye type of situation. White a couple of these are just to make for some big co-threats, which is pretty cool. And then when white peeps here, black decides, oh, okay, now, like, this is totally cut off, so I can't let white cut off this group here as well. And then white comes through, and black manages to connect back to these two stones, but white takes, these two groups and doesn't even need to come back and make two eyes for this big dragon. So this is quite, like, white handles this so well. Like, black attacks, so white just runs in, destroys the territory, and then once the territory is gone, comes back to counterattack. Because if white had punched through like this before this side sequence had played, black would have protected all of this territory that, like, all of these stones are hanging out in. So, it's really well handled, this fight by white. Black comes back to take the territory in the corner, which is big, but now white activates this ko again. And now that this white group is alive and connected, there's, white has the advantage in co-threats at this point. And so what's going to happen is black comes back and defends, which is, like I said, a local co-threat. If white just takes the stone instead of coming in, black can live by playing at the same point that white did. White connects, gouges out the eye space, and now black has to, black doesn't have another local co-threat, so black has to, come out and do this. The connection here, going to be, a huge co-threat, because this cut, it would take the corner, kill a bunch of these side stones, it'd be crazy. White takes, black comes in, obviously co-threat, and then white's got another co-threat down here, which is a great co-threat, because like this again would do too much damage. White's going to lose about 5 points up here, but if white can capture this, white's going to gain about like 13 to 15 points, and losing 10 points in this co-fight would put black so far behind in this game that black would pretty much have to resign. And then black continues, and then when we get to here, black finally decides, alright, I don't have an option, like I have to end the code now. Black does have one more co-threat at A, white would connect at B, but white has other things that they can do. Like even just threatening to, take here is actually really big, because like, there's going to be a bunch of, if you go here, possibly, oh no, maybe that wouldn't be big enough. But white has options for sure. So black just takes now. White cuts. Black tries to follow up to be like, hey, you owed a move. I'm gonna damage you some more. White just plays in a way to get Sankei and says, no, the bottom's bigger. I'm gonna give you this up here, because now that I've cut this off and I've got these stones in the center, like I don't care if this group loses its eyes. It can easily connect out. This is a big move too. You can see if black had gotten the chance to come down here, then white's territory would be a lot smaller. And, white plays very aggressively here, pushing down, not just trying to connect out directly, but to reduce black as well. This nice little sequence comes back to connect. And, we're kind of getting into the end game here, but there's just, so much about this game. And we can see at this point, this is obvious, black, this is all small end game. But the problem is that the two players are pretty much equal on the board. And so with Komi, in fact, if anything, white probably has a point or two advantage on the board. So if anything, with Komi, it's really, really clear that white is solidly in control of this game. And, we see now, just like all of these center stones got captured in the fighting, and white used this ko in the upper right really well, handled the fighting with this group. Let's just go to the end of the game, and then we'll glance back at a couple of the pivotal moments of this game, because they're so this is where black resigned, and white wins. I think this is one of the first victories that an American professional has had in some of these tournaments. I think it's super exciting. But let's go back and look at some of the highlights, because this cross opening, definitely an interesting point to note. But I mean, if you want to play cross opening, if you have a fighting style especially, like cross openings can be good. Because you're going to guarantee that you're going to get more of these weird, corner situations, where there's like moves flying all over the place. And I didn't think that this, it didn't seem to work too well to me, the way black played these two stones. But they're high and they're light, and they're definitely disrupting white. So I can't say that it's bad in any way. This is a nice sequence for white to just move the stones out really naturally. And then I think coming up here, like I said, this is an interesting thing, because white looks a little over-concentrated compared to black, but like I said, the invasion at A really, really makes like white's position better than it looks just glancing at it. Because if this invasion weren't there, for whatever reason, like even if there were just like a black stone at B right now and that invasion wasn't there, this would be a lot better for black, this shape up here. But as it is, it's actually pretty precarious. And then this move, and just how strong the follow-up at C is to this move, I think black just did not quite see all of that, because this move cuts off these 3 stones in the center, to which black decides the best thing to do is just run away with the 3 stones in the center. But now, the stones in the corner can be killed via Ko. Now granted, they've got like, I think 2 or 3 local Ko threats. So, you know, you can't initiate this Ko right now, because black can just threaten to live, and will be okay with the Ko at the moment. But later in the game, when there's more Ko threats on the board, the fact that this stone got pulled out is just really huge. Like, I kind of have to say that that's sort of a blunder by black to allow this continuation and seek compensation with this counter invasion here. Like, I think much, much better would have been possibly at this point to just play C, take the stone, you're out in the center. Even if white gets to play D, you've got Sankei, you could probably beat this down and then extend, and that would be good enough. Possibly better than the game. But, you know, it's just, you know, one of those things. As it turns out, though, white does pull the stone out. It's a little brutal. And then here, you know, white lives really easily. Even though black does get to move out in pretty good style, this allows white to activate the invasion on the top, which just destroys all this territory. And it just seemed like black never really had an edge in this game. And you know, it's going first, usually black has a little bit of an edge for at least a little while. And then this is really where I'm just like, oh man, white is a brave, brave player, because like when I see these 4 white stones in this black belly, the belly of the black beast here, I get really scared. But, you know, if all you have to do is keep one group alive, and notice that there are no weak stones of whites on the entire board at this point. Like, when we look at, like, what white has to take care of right here, it's the A stones, like, and that's it. Like, black can capture a couple stones here, big whoop. Like, as long as the A group lives, we're good. And as we so frequently see and go, if you only have to do one thing, you can usually find a way to get that one thing done. So it was just really well handled, this whole fight. And then, you know, running into the black territory on the left before coming back to counterattack, you can just see this all happens. And then it's not until this point, you know, when white's already destroyed all this territory, that white comes back to counterpunch at black's weaknesses. It was really well played. And then the timing of opening up the, you know, once all this gets taken care of, the timing of reopening the Ko here is just works so well, because now white has a ton of Ko threats, and these internal Ko threats are not going to help black. You know, like this is an internal Ko threat, because if white ignores this to capture at A, black can just live by playing at B, and that's not good enough for white. So anyway, I thought that was a really cool game. I'm super excited to see actual American professional Go slash Baduk players. I've been calling it Baduk more in my personal life, just because Go is such an awkward word in the English language for a game. But I guess force of inertia, I really doubt the AGA is going to bother changing their name to the American Baduk Association. But that's just one thing. Excuse me. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed that, and I will catch you next time.